Welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast with your host, Helen Fritsch. Helen is a 60-plus lifelong competitive athlete, flight attendant, published fitness model, writer, IFBB bodybuilding pro, and certified wine specialist who believes that your age is irrelevant to pursue goals, dreams, and desires. Are you a woman in her 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond who still has a burning desire to pursue a dream or a passion? Are you thinking about starting a new chapter in your life, but you're hesitant, thinking that you might be too old or just don't know where to begin? The Age is Irrelevant podcast is a podcast devoted to women who want to defy the odds, smash barriers, and redefine happiness and success after 40. It's time to make a difference. There is no need to dread blowing out that added birthday candle every year. A new movement is slowly taking momentum, where being over the hill just isn't relevant anymore. Age labels are being thrown out the window, and women are rediscovering the strength within themselves to make a difference, not only within their own lives, but also touching and inspiring the lives of other women. Join Helen as she and her guests discuss all aspects of aging after 40 and how to make the aging process and those twilight years more rewarding, exciting, and fun.
Hello and welcome to the Age is Irrelevant podcast. I'm your host, Helen Fritsch, and this is episode number 90. Now today I am interviewing 66-year-old state champion, a national champion, and world record holder, powerlifter Linda Franklin. Linda and I had a great conversation about her life, and her story reminds me and reaffirms to me once again that you never know what the universe has in store for you. She was an athlete her whole life, but due to several twists and turns and setbacks, it led her to get into different areas of athleticism, and eventually she found powerlifting, and how she got from point A to point Z is a great story. And I love featuring people like this who come across curveballs and detours and obstacles and are still able to overcome. I also want to thank you all too, before we get into the interview, for being a great group, and thank you so much for listening to my podcast. And if you enjoy Linda's interview or any of my other interviews, please share. I would love it. I also have a 6 weeks course online on my website, agesirrelevant.com, and if you're looking to get back into shape, it's a 6 weeks course. It's called Macros Through Menopause, where it's 6 weeks of workouts and actually 6 weeks of diet that is specifically designed for you and your goals. And you can get all that info on my website. Thanks again for listening, and here we go. Hi, Linda. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for asking me. Such a privilege to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled. It's like we've kind of been playing computer tag, I guess, or Instagram tag, back and forth. But our schedules finally aligned.
Yes,
and
great.
So for my listeners, I am speaking with 66-year-old state, national, and world record powerlifter Linda Franklin. Now, Linda has been athletic her whole life. She, as a child in high school, participated in acrobatics, ballet, piano, snow skiing, cheerleading. She jumped from that to playing soccer, entered CrossFit in her 50s, started powerlifting in her 60s. However, lots of nooks and crannies to explore, and lots of obstacles and detours along the way. So you have an extremely interesting, especially some of the health issues that you've had along the way too, and to still, continue that drive as far as, trudging forward with your powerlifting and having surgeries. And I don't want to get into all the details now because I definitely want to talk about it. But I always like to start off in the beginning, and I just want to hear about your childhood. It sounds like you were extremely active. You had a total of 4 siblings. And so let's just talk about your childhood.
Yeah. So actually, I have 4 siblings still. And I grew up in south of Sacramento, California. And had a big Catholic family, and my father's brother and his wife passed within 6 months of each other, and their sons came to live with us. So we not only had 5 children in the house under the same roof, but that now we had 7.
Wow.
And it was traumatic. My father had an alcohol problem before that, but losing his brother, who was also his business partner and best bud, was it really sent him over the edge for probably, for the most of his life.
Right.
So, things got crazy. They always were kind of with him. My mom ran the house. She was a stay-at-home mom, and he was, did the business in the house and everywhere else. But he mostly at the bars. That's what he would say. That's where I do my business. And we would have nights where we would get in the car. My mom would load us up, and she'd go find out which bar he was at and all this. It was, he'd come home late, and then he'd get, crazy and violent. He did chased my mom once, but never hit any one of us. He was just a mad drunk, and he had a heart of gold, but when he drank, he was just a different person.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, when our cousins came to live with us, which one of them lived with us for most of his teenage years. My older brother's 6 years older than me, and he moved out as soon as he could. 18, got married, had a kid, and here I was, 12, the oldest child now in the household.
Wow.
With my older cousin who, was kind of off on the lam, not really obeying. So anyway, I became the oldest in the household, and pretty much, we had a swimming pool in the backyard. I was a tomboy, full-on tomboy, and I did play with Barbie dolls and stuff, but the other side of me, climbing trees, jumping off the roof into the pool.
Oh, that sounds like me. We used to climb on the roof, and my mother had a fit one time. She's cooking, and she sees me sailing over the side. Because we were like, we lived in Massachusetts, and we were jumping off into the snow. She was
of
like,
course.
oh my God. She was like, she had a meltdown. What the
hell? Yeah. Well, we had neighbors report, hey, your kids are jumping off the roof into the pool. So it was fun, but, until we got caught. We had a lot of new construction around where we were living. So we did a lot of messing around on the new construction sites. I had nails in the foot and, you name it. We did it, and skateboarding all over the neighborhood. And my mom got me involved in acrobats, which is now called gymnastics, and ballet. And then all throughout this time, I was playing piano. I played for probably 15 years with lessons, and mostly classical. But and then got into high school, and of course, all along this time, my father was, still doing his thing, and so I tried out for cheerleader, did that, and senior year, things just got really bad. I decided not to do anything. I just wanted to smoke pot and hang out with all the seniors in high school. And I struggled growing up because my parents were not really involved with school and all that stuff. So I pretty much, I've had a lot of counseling. The counselor told me, it sounds like you pretty much raised yourself. So, and I kind of look at it that way sometimes. I'm really regimented. I'm intense, I've been told. And so, I do a lot of things just out of my own will because that's what I had to get by during those rough years. And so my senior year, I actually ended up moving in with a high school friend. My mom couldn't tolerate what was going on with my father, and both of my cousins had left by that time. And so we just, I moved in with my friend and stayed there for a bit. And then my father this is really complicated, but was put in prison for a white collar crime during an election year, and his partner, testified against him. And after high school, I graduated, I went to Hershey's and worked in Hershey's in the Oakdale area when they were still there. And so I was deposed there by FBI at 18. They come in and take me into a conference room. It was really traumatic. So And at that time, I was living back home again, working. And so I decided after that that I would move away. And I had met my future husband when I was 18, and we're still together, 48
Awesome.
years.
Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. Yeah. We've been together for 48, but only married 36. So, but still a long time. And so I moved away while all this drama was going on with my dad. My younger brother was in the army in Germany. So we got word while I was down there waitressing, working 2 jobs, living in a really funky little apartment, and got word that the trial was going to begin. So we went up there. Luckily, I didn't have to testify, but then watched this long journey of him going through a jury trial and all this, and it was not fun. So he was put in prison for 2 years. He stayed for 18 months, and during this time, while this was all going on, my husband's brother passed away from a drug overdose while we were living down on the Central Coast. That's where I moved to. I'm jumping around here, but it gets a little complicated. But when I moved away, when this was going on with my dad, I moved to the Central Coast of California, and that's where we got the news about my dad. And then my brother-in-law passed away. Mm-hmm. So we decided, from some old friends of my husband's came along and said, hey, we want to start a pot farm up in Mendocino County. So my husband was just like, I need to get out of here. This sounds fun. So we packed our bags and went and looked for a property up in Mendocino County. This was in the late 70s. So we went up there and we did find a big chunk of land with a river running through it and everything, and set up a farm and lived there for about a year, and we had running water, but we didn't have electricity. So we lived by lanterns.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, propane we had, but it was pretty brutal. But so we did that for one season and decided, we don't want to live like this forever. This has been an adventure, but we need to get out. So we did. And then we came back to sort of where we both grew up. My husband grew up in the same town. And then during this time, after growing pot and stuff, I fell into the habit of cocaine. And I was addicted for probably about I wouldn't say addicted, but yeah, I guess I was 3.5 years or so. And so one day I just decided, you know what? I want to work out at the gym. I want to get healthy. I couldn't do it anymore. Just all this craziness in my life. So started at Gold's Gym in Sacramento. And there was a lot of bodybuilding going on in there. And I started really getting into it. And the manager there asked me, he goes, you would be really good at this, but you need to put on some muscle. I mean, you need to put on size. He goes, you're lean as heck and very muscular, but you need to get some size on. Well, later I found out he was busted for drugs and stuff. He was, dealing right out of the gym. But, I gave it some thought, and they wanted me to try to pose and stuff. And I was like, this is when I was getting sick and I didn't know it. And that's why I wasn't able to put on size. So just having a ton of yeast infections, and I finally went to the gynecologist, and they made me pee in a cup, and it was just full of sugar. So he said, you need to go do your labs. And this was when I was 26 and diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which was in 1982. So I'll never forget that day. Wow. Yeah. So from there, my husband has a master's in biochemistry and math. And, back then there wasn't technology or anything. So he got the book out, started reading everything. And my doctor just kind of threw me into it. And I didn't go on shots at first. I said, no, I can't do this. I was so afraid. So I went home and I said, I'll just eat lettuce all weekend. I won't have anything else. I'll get my blood sugar down. Because when I was diagnosed, it was over 800. and which is crazy. And so I decided, well, I went back to the office on Monday and I said, hey, I can't do this. I want to eat. So I decided to start injections and did that for, 19 years, and then went on to a pump in 2000, 2001, something like that. And so I've been on an insulin pump since then. And during that time, well, that's my childhood. So,
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Wow. That's unbelievable. And so, I guess with being diagnosed with diabetes, you're thinking, I mean, you were pretty much an athlete anyway. You were very active in sports, but if you're doing research with diabetes, you probably read along the way that probably exercise is, beneficial.
Yeah, you learn, back then they tell you the triangle is exercise, diet, and insulin.
Mm-hmm.
That's the healthy triangle. So, at first, when I wasn't on insulin, I would jump rope after every meal to try to keep my blood sugar down. I didn't have a testing kit. All I could do was pee on a stick. And I was listening to your interview with Julie Olson.
Oh, yeah.
Julie
Uh-huh.
Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I could relate to a lot of that because she was diagnosed after me, but still there was no technology. So it was really difficult to control. And being 26, not being diagnosed as a child, I didn't have a parent looking out for me. It was
Right.
on me.
Right.
So it's different. I've had people ask me, wouldn't you have rather been diagnosed, or I would have rather been diagnosed as a child because I would have had my parents to help me. But I look at it both ways because I think if I was diagnosed as a child and growing up the way I did, I would probably be in a lot of trouble right now if I was still here.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Yeah. So anyway.
So, so this puts you in your like mid to late 20s. You were a big snow skier, I guess, when you were a kid, and it says that you were mainly like snow skiing was your main sport with cardio on the side to try to control your blood sugars.
Right. Yeah. And, riding a bike and then exercise bike or a little bit of jogging. And of course, Jane Fonda. Who didn't do Jane Fonda? The leg warmers.
I know. When I read your bio, I was howling with laughter. I'm like, oh my God, Jane Fonda, step aerobics, and jazzercise.
Yes, I had every one of her cassette tapes.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. That, and then we decided that, I was thinking, we weren't planning on having a family, but then I'm thinking, okay, I'm inching my way towards 10 years with diabetes. Doctor told me I could probably never have children. And I'm like, I was scared. So I thought, we need to talk about this and decide. So we had 2 planned pregnancies. My first daughter was born at 33 and my second at 35. So, and now they're 33 and 31.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that went well, with the kids. Things got a little more chaotic with my control because raising kids and trying to manage diabetes is very hard.
I bet.
Yeah. So, but I was still active. I would put my kids on my shoulders and do squats, and they loved it. And try to interact with them in that way and do a lot of outdoor things and stuff. So,
well, that's good because when I was growing up too, both my parents were athletes, so they had us out at the park, and we were always doing stuff, riding bikes, and playing and all kinds of stuff. So, and I remember at night, my dad would have dumbbells, and he would just be watching TV, and he'd grab a dumbbell, and he would make one of us sit on his feet while he did sit-ups, and I was just like so impressed that he had like this 10 or 20 pound dumbbell behind his head, and he was, doing sit-ups, and I'm like, wow.
Oh, that's great. Well, I sound like your dad with my kids.
Uh-huh. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my parents, they didn't do that. I think my mom ran around the block one time, and she was so excited about it. She was very athletic. And my father, not so much, but he was strong. And she told him that she went for a run, and he was not happy about it. Back then in the early 60s, women just really, mothers, just wasn't a thing. So,
I was lucky because my parents, my dad was a big athlete in high school and college. And I remember like being young. And even when I was in high school, I could hardly wait to join a team because I would see he had all his medals and trophies displayed like downstairs in our bonus room. And
Great.
I'd be like, oh, I want to, and I still, I mean, my parents are gone now, but like I still have his scrapbook, his athletic
Oh,
scrapbook and stuff. And, and you get nostalgic and you like look at pictures and stuff and you're like, wow, I just remember thinking, I want to be like him when I get older. That's the kind of athlete that I want to be, so.
oh, for sure. Yeah. My mother played sports in high school. I have all of her old yearbooks, or not yearbooks, but I have some of the pictures. And she was on the tennis team, on the baseball team, just she did a lot.
Mhm.
But, she got married and had kids, and that was her main thing. So.
Right. Right. So you started playing soccer. Tell us about that, 'cause that really became a passion for you.
Did, yes. So, my kids got them playing soccer, and I would watch them. And of course, I'm on the sidelines going, oh, that looks like so much fun. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, don't do that. I'm being critical of what they're doing, not realizing that, you get out there and actually do it yourself. It's a whole different thing.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. And so they played for a bit. My younger one did play club soccer. But when we moved to the Central Coast, I thought this might be a good way to meet women and enjoy the same thing together and stay active, try to keep my blood sugar in control. I could think of all these good reasons to go and learn how to play soccer. So I met a friend down there. She brought me on their team, and from there, it just progressed from one thing to another. And I ended up, we had a few teams for me. I played league. I got a year for the first year I played in league. And then joined, I've been on 2 or 3 women's teams. And then we also did the first National Senior Olympics in 2009. We're the first gold medal team.
Oh, wow.
To play soccer, and I was the leading goal scorer. So
That's
that
awesome.
was very exciting. So I did that, and then we went back with the same team and played a few more tournaments, and won the state championship a couple times.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, and then I decided, well, I want to coach too. And my favorite thing about coaching was I loved to coach middle school girls. And everybody thought I was crazy, but it's kind of the age where they start to get the strategy and stuff. And I felt like I could have an impact on them because I didn't have that growing up. And I knew what I was missing, and I could maybe give it to them and give them some structure. And we ended up doing really well. We won a championship, and we had a good time. It was really fun.
Well, that's awesome.
So
how did you get into CrossFit?
Well, okay, so soccer, not only did I play in league, but I also played pickup games. I played probably 3 to 4 times a week on top of weekend tournaments or games. And we would go to pickup, and one day we played a lot of, it was co-ed, and I just happened to step wrong, trapping a ball, and I put my foot in a hole and broke my ankle.
Oh, no.
Never broken a bone in my life. And I think I was, I don't know, maybe 54, 55. And so I decided, I was laid up for a bit and recovered. And I decided, well, during this time, my brother was really big in CrossFit in masters from 50 to 55. He was at the CrossFit Games, I think 4 times, and placed in the top 10.
Wow.
Yeah, he's fit box in the town that we grew up in. So I watched his success, and he's telling me, you really should try it. And so I decided, well, I will. And I got the nerve to go to our local CrossFit place in Morro Bay, where I lived at the time. I was nervous going in there. I thought, oh my gosh, there's a language that they have, I can't even remember, but it's all these abbreviations for certain exercises, and I'm going to feel lost. And not know what to do. But I went in there, and I think after that first day, I thought, okay, I can do this. It's going to take a little bit of work just to get to know these things. But, and I would be on the phone with my brother all the time. What the heck does this mean? And wow, what do I do? And he gave me a lot of good advice. So the second year that I did it, I ended up doing a local competition that was just all across the board, women and men, but there was no age categories. And I ended up placing, I think I placed 10th overall, but I did place first in one of the meets. So I did really well considering my age. I was the oldest one there, as per typical with where I'm at right now. And then from there, I decided to do the CrossFit Open at 2014 and did that and placed 40th worldwide as it was, when it was all over.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I was the kind of person that, I was going to CrossFit 5 days a week. I was riding a bike there with no gears, so I could go downhill to the box, but to go home after a WOD, I would have to ride uphill with no gears all the way.
Oh.
But, that's who I was. And I just I'm going to do this. And I did it all the time. And I just went all out with CrossFit. And in fact, that's what caused my problems with my hands and stuff, which probably was long-term diabetes complications in combination with that. But but yeah, I loved CrossFit. It was fun. I even got robbed once doing a team competition, but we placed first. So, that's the kind of person I am. I had too many push-ups and my arm blew up and couldn't bend it. I had ended up in ER, and it wasn't crazy bad, but it scared me, especially being diabetic. You don't want to do anything to your kidneys. So
Right.
So anyway, that was that. And during this time, my mother's health was failing. She had type 2 diabetes and went on kidney dialysis. So I was taking care of her and sleeping on the floor in her bedroom because we were doing peritoneal dialysis, which is at home care instead of hemodialysis where you go in every other day to get dialysis. So we tried that for a bit and it was rough. So she decided to go the other route, and then, she lasted a couple years after that, but then it was too much. So while that was going on, while she was sick and I was trying to do CrossFit, I'd stay with her and sleep on the floor. I was doing burpees in her hallway, trying to stay in shape and, doing great. I think her neighbors probably thought I was out of my mind, but, had to stay in shape somehow while I was cooped up with her.
Right.
And keep my sanity. So I did that. But then one day I was at a WOD and my finger started catching. I couldn't straighten it out without it clicking. And I thought, what is this? Ouch, this hurts. And I'd have to take my other hand and push my finger straight. And it got to the point where it was so painful that I had a doctor look at it. And he said, you've got trigger finger. And so they gave me cortisone injections, which alleviated it some. But it's not a good idea to do that over time because cortisone thins your tendons. Little did I know that. But so he just treated me again the same way. And it got pretty bad where I couldn't tap my hands on, like if I were to knock my hand on the side of a counter or something, I literally I'd be gritting my teeth. Like that hurts. I was getting really debilitated by it and went to a surgeon at UCLA and he said, he goes, well, how many fingers do you think is involved? And I said, well, probably 3. He goes, no, all of them. So that led to 4 or 5 hand surgeries to release all of them. It took a little bit of time, but
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the first surgery they did 4 on my left hand, and I'm left-handed. And that one was the most brutal of all. Probably shouldn't have done that many at a time, but I knew what I was in for with all 10 and decided I want to get it over with so I can get back to working out.
Right.
And during this time also, I had my bicep tendon reattached. So after first 2 hand surgeries, I went in and had a bicep tendinosis. They reattached my bicep tendon. During this recovery, I was in occupational therapy for my left hand for almost a year.
Oh, wow.
And well, they didn't think I was going to get my grip back. They thought I'd permanently lost it. And so, I'd go in and I had both hands in the wax and doing all these things in occupational therapy. And it's a very intimate setting when you're in hand therapy. People are all sitting around with their hands on a table and everybody's talking. It's kind of like a little community of people with messed up hands and stuff, relating their stories. And everybody would just look at me like, why do you have both hands? We only have this one. And I said, well, it's diabetes. And, I don't know what else, but this is where I ended up. And so month after month, I'd go into therapy. And finally, one day, the therapist walked in and she said, Linda, I think you've turned the corner. I think you're going to get your grip back. It's going to take
That must have
time.
been music to your ears.
So I literally put my head down and started bawling my head off. And everybody around me started clapping their hands. It makes me cry to think about it right now because I'm left-handed.
Me
and
too.
I thought, yeah, cool. So, I thought, oh my God, for one thing, I can't grip. I won't be able to crochet, which is one of my loves. And all these things, I thought, I'm going to be debilitated right now for the rest of my life. And it was just so good to hear that. And anyway, so from there on, I decided, well, CrossFit's out. I can't do this anymore because of the excessive gripping that you have to do to stay competitive.
Right.
And then my bicep, that was all messed up. So I decided to I did a lot of walking during this recovery time too. And would put on music and would walk along the beach because we lived on the coast. And I would do long walks every day, like 6 miles, just going after it. And, anything I do, it's like, okay, got to take it to the hilt. And that's what I did. I got back into doing push-ups and trying to keep my hands as mobile as I could and started again doing a little bit of weights in my garage with a barbell. And finally decided, I'm going to go to the gym and just try to get back to where I was, at least try to squat, because when I left CrossFit, I think I was squatting 200, which was my max. And I thought, I'm going to just try to go back to the gym and work my way back into at least lifting and doing some mobility, maybe a little bit of CrossFit. And during this time, I did a few 5Ks, but I'm more of a sprinter, not a runner. So that was fun when it happened, but I don't miss it.
Yep.
And then when I was going to the gym, it was, I was really loving it. And during this time, I was also a Facebook admin for one of the largest groups on Facebook for type 1 diabetic athletes. And the group, when we first started it, was about 300 or 400 people. And now I think it's almost 15,000 people.
Wow.
All the way from little kids to 80, 90-year-olds, all active diabetics. It is the most wonderful group. It's one of the best things that's ever happened to me because I found a community that I could relate to. When you're exercising with diabetes, it gets really complicated. And a lot of people struggle. Most people do with type 1 struggle with it. So it was a good place to go, safe place to go to talk about things and how people worked through all their issues with exercising and diabetes. And it was fun, but I decided to leave admin after 7 years. It was getting to be a lot. And we had 7 admin and only 2 were active, and I was one of them. So, but that's where I met my coach. And he's also diabetic. And he was on admin, and we used to chit chat on the side off of Facebook. But he saw me post a couple videos, and he knew what I had gone through with my hands and stuff. And he says, we need to talk. Maybe you ought to try powerlifting.
Well, let me ask you a quick question before we get into that, because I know as an athlete and competing in bodybuilding shows that I've been injured also too. And the whole mindset thing, it's just really, can be debilitating to know that, especially in a case like yours where you're out for months and, you can't be in the gym, you can't be lifting. I mean, I'm kind of like you. I've been, sick and injured and whatever. And I thought, well, I need to do something. And, even like during COVID, I was like, I would be out. I had COVID, which turned into pneumonia. And that was when it all first started. I had it like a year and a half ago or so, but it was, I moved to Phoenix a couple of years ago and I have family out there and they literally treated me like a leper. It was like, they come to my house, drop things off and run back to their car. I mean, it was just like, I was alone. So I do the same thing. I'm like, well, I'm just going to go out and walk because, I wasn't, I had like, the COVID that I had was kind of like just a bad sinus infection. I mean, I still was sleeping well, I was eating well, but it was just all basically in my head. So, but it was just like, I wasn't really, up to lifting weights. So I'd go out and walk, 2, 3, 5 miles a day. I'd go like to the grocery store, run in there with my mask on to get a Starbucks and then turn around and walk back out and walk home or something just to get out of the house because I had to do something.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's really, I've learned from that when you do hit those hurdles or those detours that you really have to focus on taking things one day at a time. And then also don't be so hard on yourself because, stuff happens and it is what it is. And worrying about it or getting stressed out about it is not going to make things, speed up or heal you any quicker. So you just have to, sometimes it's the universe telling you things like, okay, this is why you're having, you need to back off or whatever. But I just learned that I have to be patient because the gym's not going anywhere.
No.
And all the powerlifting meets and all the bodybuilding shows, they're not going anywhere either. So just one of those things where I'm glad that, you still were like in that mindset, I've got to go out and do something and not really letting things just take over,
Right. Yeah. You do have to take it a day at a time, and patience is the hardest thing in the world for me, but I've learned through all these different obstacles with, some of the things we haven't even talked about yet, but just knowing that I've got today, I'm going to make it the best I can. Tomorrow, I'm a very visual person and I do a lot of visualization, which helps me see like before a soccer tournament, I would envision myself scoring, like how am I going to move? And, I would just say, okay, or afterwards I'd think about what I did and think, okay, I should have done this or whatever. But I'm just visually in my mind, I try to see how I can improve without trying to stress myself out. Obviously it's, you can't be there maybe tomorrow or the next day, but it gives you some hope that you can.
And that's
like
it.
The
you
day
hit the nail on the head. Yep.
Yeah.
It's all about, it does give you hope. It does.
It does. And, you have to have that. If you don't, it's, you might as well just, throw everything in the trash can. But as far as like the day I could tie my shoes, I was just wearing slip-ons and finally my hands worked well enough to where I could tie my shoes. I celebrated.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, it sounds so simple and so I couldn't get a jar off of a, I get a lid off of a jar. I couldn't do a lot of things that were so basic. And then, really makes you appreciate all the little things.
Doesn't it? We take for granted so many things health-wise until you pull your back out or you hurt your hand or you hurt your arm, I totally get that. I've got a little bit of tennis elbow going on right now, and that's affecting me with, weightlifting and stuff. And it just appeared out of nowhere. And I'm like, I'm not really sure why I've got this going on, but, I'm working on trying to, get to take care of it. But it's more, annoying than anything else. But it's just you just have to kind of just work through it. So I totally understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. It can mess with your head for sure. And you just have to get out of that and do what you can to try to make it better. But I have had elbow issues within the last few months after knee surgery. And I thought to myself, oh my God, am I ever going to be able to do this? But gradually it's getting better. And it's just every day. You just can't look too far ahead with these things. Just do what you can in the day.
Right. No, I agree with that. So you met your coach through this admin page. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. And he's got quite a bit of experience in powerlifting and strongman and all that. And we did a Zoom chat, and we both talked about it to make sure we were a good fit. And this was when I was 61, and decided, well, I'm going to give it a try. Why not? I need some structure. I need structure anyway. I'm very regimented.
I'm a very structured person too. I have to always, I like structure. I like having goals. And sometimes when I'm not in between shows, or if I'm in my off season, I'm kind of like flailing, going, okay, I need to hone in. Okay, I'm a master's track athlete too, so I'm like, okay, well,
that's
on that,
cool.
So I'm gonna, whatever. So I'm cracking up about, like, I have to. I think it's maybe just the athlete ingrained in us, that we are so used to being, on meal prep or training or whatever. And then when finally that show comes or the meet comes, and then afterwards you're like, okay, now what?
So that's so true. Yeah. My coach always has to bring me down a little bit after a meet. I want you to not touch the barbell for a week. I'm like, okay, I guess I better not go to the gym because the temptation's too great. So I'll walk, I'll do some stretching and, just try to get my head out of that for a bit and, move, do some light things. But yeah, I need someone to reel me in every once in a while.
Yeah. But before that, now, so you had a bout with melanoma.
Right. So this was, I'm trying to think exactly when it happened. I wrote it down here somewhere because of all these things. When you're 66, it makes it hard to remember exactly when it happened. So a year after I had my bicep tendon reattached, which was, this was going into powerlifting right before. And I actually found it looked like a big freckle on my arm. And my husband says, you really got to get that looked at. It's, looks a little bigger than normal. And I thought, well, she didn't want to take it off, the doctor, but I told her, hey, I can't sleep at night. It's giving me anxiety. Just take it off. And so I got a call 5 days later. It's melanoma. You need to come in, get surgery. It's in situ though, which means it hasn't spread. It's all in the, within. And, unfortunately, it was on the top of my left bicep, which, left-handed. I just had my bicep tendon reattached. My bicep was looking all nice again. And when I went in for surgery, he goes, I know you're going to hate this, but I have to cut right across the top of your bicep.
Oh,
I know. And I thought, oh man, well, you know what? You do what you got to do. I got to get this off my body. And it did create some issues with push-ups and all that stuff, because with melanoma, they have a certain protocol. They have to go so deep and so wide. And that's what it is, no matter what. And no matter if it...
I had something like that too. It was on the back of my leg, on my calf, and it was like, like in a little eraser head, but they did a big giant triangle incision.
Oh gosh!
They wanted to make sure that even though it hadn't spread throughout my body, they were like, it has tentacles and that's how it spreads. So it was just one of those. I had this nice big, scar on the back of my foot, or the back of my calf. But yeah, I totally get that. So
yeah, so I had 22 stitches across the top of my bicep.
God.
And during this time, I decided, well, integrity back, where the skin's where we stitched it together. So be careful doing anything. You don't want to weaken that spot. Let that grow back together. And it has left quite a big scar. But at this point of my life, I'm like, as long as I can do the things I want to do, I'm okay with it. I'm just glad that they got it all. And so I started doing push-ups and stuff again, and I could really feel the nerves, trying to reconnect. And it was really unsettling at first, but I thought, the more I do, as long as I don't do too much, it's going to get better. And eventually it hasn't really affected my lifting at all. It's visible, but
Yeah.
It's just another chink in my armor, I guess.
No, you're right. You're right. So how was I've done CrossFit too, and unfortunately I had a couple of bad accidents, which the second accident I had, we were doing a WOD, and one of the exercises was like box jumps. And when you're doing this routine, the last series that I was doing, it was like you're tired. And of course I just didn't jump up high enough and literally did a face plant. I flipped over the box and did a face plant. And here I had a bodybuilding show in 2 weeks, and I was like bruised.
Oh no.
And all beat up and bloody. And my coach was like kind of blowing it off. And I'm like crying because I'm like, I can't get on stage looking like this, so I was like, walk away. That's the second accident you've had. You're done. So I tried it. I liked it. Totally different than anything I've ever done before. But I have a lot of respect. I love watching the CrossFit Games, especially the gals who are in their 50s.
Oh, yeah.
50s. I mean, I've interviewed Mary Beth Protomides, and she just won. She won, I guess maybe it was like the 60 plus, world champion.
I listened to that.
And
it was great.
Yeah, and Julie Holt just won the 65 plus this past year in 2022.
Yeah,
amazing.
I listened to Julie. Yeah.
Oh my God. It was just, women are just unbelievable. And Mary Beth won, and then she had a series of accidents, kind of like you. And then she came back this past year and then won again. I'm like, unbelievable that she's out for 2 or 3 years with injuries, and then she comes back and wins again. It's just like the quality, the eliteness of you and Julie and Mary Beth and all the women that I interview on this podcast. It's just incredible, especially being the age that you are. That's just really amazing.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot of inspiration out there for me. That's for sure. I have to ask you though. So after you bashed up your shin and cut yourself up on a box jump, did you do the show?
I did the show. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I did the show, and I actually there was.
Why am I not surprised?
It was a really big show. It was in Seattle, and it was a 50 plus category, and I was 59 at the time, and there was 15 women in my category, and I came in third. So
that's impressive.
I was tickled to death. But we used a lot of makeup, and you get tanned really dark to begin with.
Right.
I was doing arnica and everything I could to try to get these bruises to heal ASAP. But yeah, everything was good. But I was just thinking, oh my God, I can't do any more of this right before the show. Now, what if I fall and break my foot or ankle or something?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a lot can happen in CrossFit if you're not careful.
And when I went, I think I actually went to an ortho to have an x-ray just to make sure. And he goes, "We love CrossFitters." He goes, "You keep us in business."
Yes, when I went to get my bicep tendon fixed, he goes, "You guys are the bulk of my business right now."
I said, "Well, not anymore."
No,
right.
I'm out.
So, give us the difference, like your first day, like you decided, like, okay, now I'm going to try powerlifting. It's a totally different beast from bodybuilding, and then I'm sure from CrossFit. It's just a whole new beast.
It is, yeah. So the difference, is, you mean as far as competing or just training?
Training.
Okay, so training for me, it was easier. Definitely a lot more accessory work. Practicing the 3 compound lifts, squat, bench, and deadlift, a lot of accessory work, but, I wasn't doing burpees. At first I was doing a little bit of it on the side, but he kind of discouraged me, goes, "Hey, if you're going to do stuff like that, we're going to have to reframe your program, because if you want to compete in powerlifting, you can't go play soccer and do this. It's a different type of training, and you won't maximize your potential in powerlifting if you do other things." So I decided, okay, well, but what I did find, the differences I found with powerlifting versus CrossFit is I was so much more sore with CrossFit than I have ever been with powerlifting. I literally would wake up at night with CrossFit just aching all over, just sore. Because I never really let my body rest and heal and rejuvenate. I was just going for it 5 days a week. I was powerlifting, train 4 days a week, get good sleep. I have days of rest. And I noticed I was getting stronger, maybe not cardio wise, but definitely stronger. And also nowhere near as sore. I was sore when he would, up the weight or whatever, but the difference was huge, just huge.
And I'm sure your diet was probably different too.
Yeah, honestly, I've done a lot of diets in my life, being diabetic, but I have been for quite a long time now. I've been a real basic eater. I don't do casseroles. I don't do blended stuff. I bake chicken breasts. I prep all my vegetables once a week or twice a week. Yeah. And I throw stuff together. I get it all out. I like fresh food, but I keep it simple. When I see, like, okay, is there flour in that? Is there, how much fat is in that? I can't calculate it because all of that affects my blood sugar.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I tend to stay very simple, and I always have. But I was probably eating a little more carbohydrate doing CrossFit than I am now. Although I still am, but I have to manage it. But I think CrossFit I did do more carbohydrate than I am doing now. Now I'm doing probably more protein. But it's a very basic diet. I mean, it's just super easy. I do all as organic as I can and just keep it simple.
Yeah, that sounds like us too. And I think even when I'm not even in prep, I'm still cooking all my food. Like, I'm on a 3-day trip right now for work. And I prepared 3 days worth of food. So I'm just eat out of my cooler. And people are like looking at me because I keep pulling this stuff out of my bag, and people are like laughing, calling me. And then when I'll fly to Europe, and I'll take my nap, get up, go to the gym, get a workout in, then I'll meet the crew, and then we'll go out sightseeing or do something. And then I'm like they're at a bar, like and I'll be in prep. We're at a bar and they're having drinks and tapas, and I'm having I pull out a turkey burger out of my purse. And they're like cracking up. They're going, we're just going to call you. We're just going to call you Houdini. What else you got in there? I'm like, I got rice. I got sweet potato. I got. So it's just.
Yeah, that is organized. Yeah, wow.
So it's pretty funny because I know I'm like, well, I'm going to be gone for like 4 or 5 hours. I'm going to have to eat, and I'll have a coffee with them while they're having their wine or whatever they're having. But I just kind of chuckle that I'm like, I'd love to have some food like that, but I just can't. I'm on prep right now, so everybody just laughs at me. But you got to do what you got to do. So
well, you have a goal, and you want to crush that goal, so that's what you do.
That's what you do. So tell us about. So you started powerlifting, and tell us about your first meet.
Oh gosh, so my first meet, I didn't have a handler. So for powerlifting, you have a coach, and my coach lives in Arkansas. At the time, he lived in Texas, and I wasn't going to ask him to fly out for a local meet. It was ridiculous. He goes, "Oh, no, you can do it yourself." I'm like, no, I can't. I just can't. And so my brother, I begged him. I said, "Would you please handle me?" Because, CrossFitter, he knew about weightlifting and stuff. And he had a talk with my coach, and he decided to handle me. And it wasn't too far from where both of us lived. So it was really nice. And he handled me that meet. I went to weigh-ins. I was a nervous wreck. Of course, I made weight and everything. But when I was in the weight room, you have to get all your stuff out of the bag and get all your gear checked in. And I left my knee sleeves there and found out later they were stolen, which was pretty upsetting. So I didn't know until the day of the meet. I thought they were in my bag. I get there, and we're getting ready to squat, and I'm looking, and they're not there. And I literally panicked. I was like, I can't do this. My brother's cool and calm all the time. And he just looks at me and goes, "Linda, just calm down." He goes, "You don't even need them. Just go out there and squat." I'm like, okay. So But the lady overheard me who's the manager at the gym. And she goes, I know where there's some knee sleeves. Somebody left them in the locker. And she dug them out for me and I slipped them on and used them for the meet.
Oh, awesome.
But, with my brother there, would you just relax, just calm down.
Yeah.
Don't walk around, sit down on the bench right here. You don't need to lift don't put any plates on the bar, any of that. I'm here for that because that's what handlers do.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't know really much about I just entered the meet. I did open and masters. And that was one of the 2 meets that I had a competitor with in my age group, which was then 60 to 64 in my weight class. And ironically, she was such a sweetheart. I've lost contact with her, but at the time she owned all the records in that weight class. And so the weights that I was putting in for my lifts were just slightly above hers. So as the lineup goes, when you go out to lift, they go by weight on the plate, on the bar, and the least amount of weight to the heaviest goes in that order. So she always went one right before me, and then I'd go right after she'd set the record, and then I'd go after her and break it. And after a while, she was getting a little mad at me, like, okay. And then I think we got to deadlifts, and she turned around and looked at me, and she goes, well, I'll have this record for about 2 seconds. So literally I went out and my sister-in-law was in the audience going, make them and break them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was a really fun meet actually. And then I actually placed second in open. I didn't even know why I got the award. I'm like, it was a small meet though, but I was like, what is it? I got back and sat down after I got the medal. I looked at my brother, what did I get this for? He goes, you won second in open too. Not just first in masters, but so that was kind of cool. That was fun. And that lit the fire. Man, I was looking for the next meet as soon as I got home. I was so excited.
Well, and then, to go on and win, nationals and then, a world record. I mean, I always think about this too, think back when we were in our 20s. And if somebody would have told you that you're going to be a world record power lifter in your 60s, just like people would tell me, oh, you're going to be a masters, bikini pro. You're going to be parading around in a bikini and 5-inch heels in front of 500 strangers. When you're in your 50s
impressive.
And 60s, I'd be like, yeah, right, yeah.
That is so impressive, honestly.
So it's really, and so many of these women that I've interviewed, it's just like Karen Hurley. I mean, to me, her whole story is like a universe thing where she got into it because she took her son for horseback riding lessons. And then she thought, I think I might like that. So then she decided to start horseback riding. And then she was like, and she said she was pretty overweight. So she's like, I really need to lose some weight because I like riding the trails and I feel bad for the horse. And then I need to get up and be strong enough to get up onto the horse when you're on the trail. So that's why she started going to the gym. And it was just like these progressions of just and now she's kind of up there with you, so it's just like, it's just unbelievable how, you start one thing. And so it's our paths that the universe chooses for us. It's just, if you're open and receptive, it's
exactly what you have to be.
You can achieve great things. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from women, oh, I want to be like you, which I totally take as it's the ultimate compliment. But at the same time, I don't know if you really just like me, but be the best that you can be.
Right. Well, when they hear about, like, I'll have people like, oh, what do you do? I bet you don't eat any carbs. Just like, girl, I'm eating carbs 5 times a day. It's just like, I eat a lot of carbs. But people are like, I'm like, well, you have to give up, your sodas and you have to give up sugar. Oh, I can't do that. I'm like, well, I said, it's not that you can't, it's that you won't. Let's get those 2 things straight. But it's a lot of willpower and you have to make it a priority. So
you do, if you want it bad enough.
Yeah. So I think that's what the people like you and Julie Holt and I've interviewed so many other, I interviewed a gal, Flo Myler. She's 87 now, but she's a world champion record holder in pole vaulting.
Wow.
you
Oh
know.
gosh.
Yeah, and she's still, she's still there. It was like it's hilarious that she was like, I interviewed her when she had just turned 85, and she was excited because she was going to break more records in the 85-year-old category. But
That is so incredible.
But she got me into pole vaulting because I thought, well, I've always been interested in that, and if she can do it, I can do it. So then I started pole vaulting. So it was just like, it's amazing and that's why I love doing this podcast. Can you hear all that noise?
Is that the weather?
Yeah, it's snowing and sleeting here in Detroit,
gosh.
and I'm just like,
yeah,
I'm afraid to look out the window.
Oh, and you have to fly? Yikes!
Tomorrow morning.
Oh,
if our planes get in tonight. We'll
oh man. Yeah, I think the thing is, I know as we get older, with the kid, not everybody, whoever has kids are grown and gone, you're empty nesters or whatever, but it's important that you don't lose your passion for things.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it is in life, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can't lose your passion because that is what keeps you going. I just love feeling strong and doing things. And I love all kinds of sports. I love ping pong. I love badminton. I love, I just like being I'm a very physical person.
Yeah.
But if you're not and you find a passion somewhere else, gardening or whatever, I just think it's so important to pursue it because I'm telling you, life can, we're just here for a day, and you gotta make it the best.
No kidding. And I was interviewing somebody not too long ago, and they referred to empty nesters. Instead of saying empty nesters, they referred themselves as free birds. And I'm like,
I like that.
Because they're free of the kids. It's not like, oh, they're empty nesters and now they're all the kids are gone. No, it's like, no, they're free.
Yes.
I loved it. I thought
that's true.
They're free birds. They get to, they can fly. And I just thought that was awesome. But I'm with you too. And that's why I love doing this podcast, because I want to give women hope and inspiration that it doesn't matter how old you are. You can still, we see stuff on social media now, women in their 70s, 80s, 90s at the gym, like deadlifting, and stuff. And it's just like, and I'm such a big proponent of bone health because bone health is the key to longevity. And
yes,
all of us know we've all had mothers, aunts, uncles, parents, whoever, who have fallen. And then the next thing you know, they're in the hospital. And then the next thing you know, they're gone. And it wasn't from the fall. It was just because of poor bone health. So
right. Exactly. Yeah. I just got my BMD done, and the doctor, she looked at me and said, I have never in my life, as long as I've been a doctor, seen a woman of your age with a bone mineral density like this. She goes, it's that of a 30-year-old. She goes, she said, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I just got mine done in December, and I got the results, and I was like tickled. I was going, oh my God, this is awesome. So it's all true.
Yeah. It's resistance.
So is there, so you've got some hobbies, gardening, nature, hikes, and crocheting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you also too were a realtor.
Yes, I did real estate for a long time. I shortly after I was diagnosed, got my real estate license, and I did that for quite a long time. And that was difficult with diabetes too. So, but I did it. And then we eventually moved away to the coast, and I just didn't want to practice real estate where we moved to, and the kids were in elementary school, and I decided, and my husband's a general contractor. He designs and builds homes, and I do the interior stuff. And so I decided, well, I'm going to help you, so we became a team, and I actually ended up doing foundations and way more than I thought I would be doing with construction. But so until our very last home, which we just built, we just finished about a year and a half ago, and helped build that too.
That's awesome. And so I guess right now, you had a second bout of melanoma and followed up with knee surgery too.
Yeah. I know. So my 9th meet I did in last June, and set 2 national records in squat and deadlift, which in powerlifting, you really strive for the biggest total of all 3 lifts. And I finally met my goal of exceeding 800 pounds. So I got an 804 pound total, which put me number one all time, all federations, raw and wrapped, for women 65 to 69 in the 75 kg weight class.
Yay!
In the world.
Congratulations.
So
That's awesome.
that was pretty cool. So that meet was just like icing on the cake, but I still have my sights set on more. So after that meet, I was doing, I went and had a mole checked on my arm, looked like a freckle. Literally, if you saw a picture of it, you would have thought it was just one of my bazillion freckles on my body. And I got a call about 5 days later telling me it was melanoma in situ again, and got in for surgery. They did the first one, and again, they have the parameters of they have to go so wide and so deep. And I know it's going to have a good sized scar. It was on my opposite arm, lower, just below my shoulder cap, but not in between my tricep and bicep. So it's kind of, luckily it wasn't on the muscle itself, but still, there is muscle there. And so they did the first surgery and healing up. And what they do is they test the edges to make sure that they've got it all. And so about 10 days later, I got a call saying that they did not get it all, and I had to have another surgery. So I went back in about 2 weeks after that, and just the waiting is enough to drive you out of your mind. You just want it. You're afraid, because melanoma is one of the fastest spreading cancers there is. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, get this off as fast as you can. So when I go in, she does the surgery. She goes, I just have to tell you, we still have to do the same protocol, which is the same parameters outside of where it was, the edges and the depth. So they went even further. And now I have a big scar on my arm, much bigger than my bicep. It's if you look at it from the front and I just hang my arm down to the side, it looks like a baby shark took a bite out of my arm. It's pretty ugly, but you know what? They got it all. The second call I got from the doctor, she could just hear me like literally wanting to just tell me now. Did you get it all this time? And she goes, I got good news. I got good news. Those are the first two words out of her mouth, because she knew that, she needed to tell me that so I wouldn't have a meltdown. And she said, we got it all this time. So that was reassuring. But now I go in every 4 months for the rest of my life for a full body check.
Yeah. I'm fair skinned too. So ever since I had that surgery, I mean, I see a little freckle or something, even though if it's raised, I'm running to the dermatologist. I can't get there fast enough.
Well, not raised. Neither one of mine were. So, and then after that happened, I was doing an exercise called Copenhagen adductor lifts, which is adductor lifts is where you're strengthening the inside of your thigh. That's your adductor. And you lay on your side, put your foot or knee up on a bench and raise the lower leg up to it. So it's like a scissor almost on your side. Right. And my coach said, start with your knee. And then as you get better at it, go out to your foot. So the suspension of you being on the ground and lifting your leg up becomes a little more difficult. Well, I started with my knee. I did it once. I thought, that's kind of easy. So I go right out to the foot, which was probably a big mistake, because right then and there, the first 2 reps, I'm like, that didn't feel quite right. And my knee just got a little janky, and I'm like, okay, well, so I was walking around and I kept having to shake my leg back in to get it back in place. Went and had an x-ray, then an MRI, and he goes, yeah, you tore your meniscus. So anyway, had surgery the end of September, and it was a debridement. They didn't have to take any out or sew anything up. So it was as simple as it could have been, but he said, I did find arthritis in your knee. And I'm like, I've never felt arthritis. I didn't know I had it. He goes, well, most people your age do. And on top of that, he goes, it's probably going to give you a little more grief after the surgery than the rest of the stuff. And I'm like, well, we'll see about that. I go, all I want to do is make sure that I can squat again. because otherwise it's going to change my whole outlook on what I'm doing right now. I mean, this was devastating to me because I was supposed to go to a world competition in November and I had to cancel. I had my plane tickets and everything. So I just said, hey, I just don't wreck me so I can't squat again. So anyway, but here I am almost 5 months post-surgery and I'm squatting close to 200 again. I'm getting there. But the arthritis is rearing its ugly head now, so I'm taking it. This is where patience is a virtue, and I have to remind myself that I'm gonna get there, but I have to be. I don't want to ruin a good thing here and go too far overboard. So.
And your next meet, or you're looking at your next meet is in the fall?
Yes, it's in September. It's a national meet, drug tested national in Vegas.
Okay. Well, a quick hour has gone by. And,
oh gosh,
it's been great to hear your story. Any final
thank you.
words of wisdom to women listening, as far as women who are already in a fitness program or women who would like to start something, especially in their 50s and 60s?
I would say, don't be afraid. Wherever you go with your passion, you're going to find people there doing the same thing as you. And what I found with the powerlifting community is that whether you're lifting just the bar weight or quite a bit more than that, they cheer you on just as hard as they would if you were lifting, 300 pounds on the bar. I think the community that you can find within whatever you want to do is really what is uplifting to me. And it's actually giving me a whole new perspective on how to spend my golden years, which is I want to be involved with my passion and keep doing it. And if I can't, I'll find another way to be involved with it. But don't be afraid, because there will be people there to lift you up and make you feel like, yes, you can do this.
I agree.
Because there are countless people out there doing it.
I agree 1,000%. Well, if people, are you on social media? If people want to get a hold of you or follow you?
Yes, I do have a Facebook, but I don't really go on. I'm just there for family stuff. So I am on Instagram and TikTok. Okay. So those two handles are the same, and they are Linda, Linda, Gets, Gets, strong.
Strong. Awesome. That's great. Well, Linda, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh,
it's great.
Yeah, I'm so happy you asked me. Thank you. I'm really enjoying listening to all these inspirational women. And that's another thing. If you're doubting any of this, listen to these other women on our show. They're just amazing.
They are amazing. And I'm adding you to that amazing category.
Well, thank you.
Thank you again for being so inspiring, and best of luck in all your recovery and your future new national and world records.
Well, thank you. Oh, fingers crossed. And thanks. It's an honor to be interviewed by you too.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
I sure hope you enjoyed that interview with Linda, once again affirming that age truly is irrelevant. And if you set your mind to something, you will be successful. Here are some takeaways from the interview. First and foremost, you really have to be passionate about your sport. Linda is proof that if you are not into your sport mentally, physically, and emotionally, then you will not succeed. I know I'm definitely proof of that too. I have gone through stages in my 10 years of competing in bodybuilding where I just was not mentally into the grind. And luckily for me, I realized that and took a step back to regroup. There are so many people who don't take a step back and continue down that path, unfortunately with poor end results. It's okay if you want to take a break. It's okay to take a step back and take a breather. If you want to succeed, your mind has to be spot on. Number 2, don't be afraid to start something new. Linda was an athlete her whole life, involved in several different sports, and then started something new, playing soccer at age 45. something completely different and became very successful at it. Not only was she a champion in soccer, but she was also a champion off the field as well, helping others, coaching recreational and club soccer, and being involved in the soccer community. She again stepped outside of the box at age 57 and started CrossFit. Now, CrossFit is not for the weak. I had a brief bout of CrossFit, and it actually won, as I should say, after my couple of bad accidents that I had. I do remember how intimidated I was the first day I walked into a CrossFit gym. And honestly, even though I hurt myself and decided to walk away from CrossFit, I did learn a lot, not only about testing my limits, but also about my mental capacities. You'll never know until you try. And finally, Linda is a wonderful representative of not letting your health issues mentally or emotionally take you down. Being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, having multiple hand surgeries, a bicep tendon surgery, and 2 bouts of melanoma never deterred her from wanting to continue her athletic pursuits to excellence. If anything, it made her more determined. How do you go about moving forward when you have all these issues going on? Well, in my opinion, you take it one day at a time. You celebrate your daily wins and you learn from your daily losses. Surround yourself with positive, uplifting people who will help you through your journey. And do your best to stay positive. And yes, I know it can be hard at times. Linda may have been down at times, but she was never out. She never let that little flicker, that little flame blow out completely. She may have been sidelined, but she was never sidetracked. And that's what makes her the world champion that she is today. Again, if you like this interview, please share it with your friends, because interviews like Linda's are really super inspiring, especially for women over the age of 60. And if you like my interviews, please run over to iTunes and give me a 5-star review. That would be awesome. Again, I greatly appreciate all my listeners. Thank you for listening. I am always thrilled when I can find all these amazing, inspirational women to share their life stories with you. If you want to get a hold of Linda, you can find her on Instagram at linda.gets.strong. And you can find me at HelenFritch_IFBB Pro on Instagram, and also at helen@ageisirrelevant.com. Thank you again for being a truly Age is Irrelevant great group of listeners. Until next time, bye-bye.